Thank you, everyone. We're now coming to the part of the day that I am the most excited about because I get to talk about the mentoring scheme, which is something that's incredibly close to my heart. I have the enviable position of being the one that runs it, so I get to see every year how rewarding it actually is. I get the feedback every year, and being able to say that 90% of participants feel that we absolutely smashed it out of the park with their pairings is a pretty good sign. So I am here today to tell you a little bit about it and a little bit about myself. So I am Rachel Moriarty. I am at Oxford University Press, and I run the mentoring programme, as I said. And this year we are doing STM week, which is fantastic. And I don't normally get the platform to shout about the mentoring scheme in this way. So please indulge me while I gush about how much I love it. Okay, and I have a wonderful panel with me here today, and what I'll do is I'm going to ask them to each introduce themselves and to give you a bit of a snapshot of how they came to the mentoring scheme, because I think that came up at how do we disseminate, how are we promoting, so I'd like to kind of hear how they know about it. So I'm going to start from Fran and work the way along. So Fran.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So if you don't know me, I'm Fran Coxshall. I'm currently a Society Partnership Lead at Oxford University Press. Just had to remember my job title there. I'm about 3 weeks into my new role, so I'm still adjusting from that side. I guess what I'll do, so part of what my new role covers, so I've always really worked in an editorial type role. I now work in the production and content operations team, so a real big transition in terms of some of the things that I'm looking at. And some of the things I do at the moment are looking after all of our bid and tender management from the production side. I do a lot of communication, both internally and externally, so there could be something quite interesting for promoting the mentoring scheme to production colleagues a little bit more. And I also work on some strategies to do with continuous improvement and change management. I think just tying in a little bit to some of the themes from today, I'll just give you a very brief overview of my career to this date and sort of how that's linking to mentorship schemes. So unlike a few people, I actually wanted to work in publishing. So from about the age of 15, I was really keen to start working in publishing. Much like a lot of people, I thought it would be swanning around with fiction books, but I ended up starting my first job working at Wiley in the Medicine and Health Science Journals list. So I was there for a little while. Then I moved to Taylor and Francis, where I was on the Engineering, Computer Science and Technology journals. And then when there were a lot of changes and we got a lot more medical journals, I moved to the publisher role of Medicine and Health Science. So I was there for about 4.5, 5 years, and where I met Leon as well, so it's lovely to see him here again. Sorry, I'm just very excited to see you today. And from there, I took a role at the British Society for Rheumatology. So for just under 5 years, I was head of publishing there, and I was working as a client of OUP. And then after about 5 years, I moved into a senior publisher role within OUP. And then 3 weeks ago, I'm now part of the Society Partnership Lead within the Content and Operations team. So in terms of mentoring, I've always been really keen to do that sort of pay it forward, that give back side of things. When I was developing my career, I found that sometimes I could have really done with someone to just have that time and spend that bit of time with me and talk to me and say, hey, have you thought about this? Or can we introduce you to this person so you can talk about things? And some of that I did miss a little bit. So I made it really my mission to try and give that as much as possible to other people. So I've been part of quite a lot of mentoring schemes. So 2020 was the Spare Zoom project. So they had a spare room project for people based in London. I'm not London-based. But when they had the online version, that was a really nice opportunity to talk to people. I've recently also joined the Mission Include mentoring scheme. So this is part of Moving Ahead, which is also part of the 30% Club. So really focused on DEIA initiatives and getting more people from different backgrounds into publishing and thinking about their career development. I've also done some mentoring for ALPS, And in this role for STM, I thought I'd swap it a little bit. So I was a mentee during this program. So I gained a lot from that side, but I have signed up to be a mentor for next time.
Great, thank you. So for those of you who haven't heard my voice already today, I'm Cecilia Marshall and I work for Frontiers. I'm a publishing strategy lead for Impact. You might ask what that is. I don't know. No, really, I joined in June of this year and it's a brand new team, and really it's about increasing the impact of the research that we publish, and how do we as a publisher build for that? How do we work backwards from the impact that we want to have and use that to inform our publishing practices? So I joined academic publishing in 2017. I took a job, entry-level job at Cambridge University Press. It was my first proper job out of uni. I'd been working before that at a call centre at a brewery, so it was good for my liver, I think, to move. And the reason I kind of came to publishing, I suppose, is I did my undergraduate degree, and I realised that as much as I loved science and I wanted to be a part of the kind of ecosystem of science, being a researcher was not for me, and I think that's a common pattern with lots of people in publishing. And so when I found this entry-level job, I was like, perfect, this is great. And I sort of fell into it, loved it, and worked my way up at Cambridge, various different roles, various different subject areas before taking this role at Frontiers. The other thing that I'm really passionate about and have been really involved with in my organisations and in the industry is diversity and inclusion. I'm a member of the RSC Joint Commitment. I'm on the DEI committee. I co-chaired the Pride Network at Cambridge University Press. So that's really a kind of core passion of mine. So if anyone wants to chat DEI, I'm around. Yes, later. So in terms of mentorship, I was a mentor this year. It's my second year as a mentor. I came to it because an email came into my inbox with a sort of colleague that I somewhat knew, who I think was in the ECPC and was saying that they didn't have enough mentors, and would anyone sign up as a mentor? And I had never heard of it, I'd not given it any thought, and but I was like, well, I guess someone needs my help. So after kind of a discussion with colleagues about whether or not I'd be a good mentor, maybe, I decided to sign up and loved it. Amazing, couldn't recommend it highly enough, but we'll discuss that in more detail later.
Hi everyone, I'm Akila Sridhar. I'm a deputy editor at Springer Nature. I specifically work with scientific reports, the journals, which I think most of us would have heard. It's the largest journal at the moment in the industry. And I've come here, I've been in publishing for about 4.5 years now. And this is after a very long stint in academia. So I gave up on research much after you did. So I was in academia for almost 12.5 years through research assistants, PhD, postdoc, etc. And then finally decided, well, this is not for me. But like Cecile, I wanted to stay very, very close to science, and the sort of natural progression is to move into publishing. I started off as in a locum editor position in Springer Nature. We use this word a lot for like temporary contracts as a locum editor for a group of journals called BMC series journals. So I worked sort of handling and clearing their backlog, loved it, stayed on as an editor, and grew into a role which should effectively get the title of a chief editor, but it doesn't because we're still very much in training. So I took care as a managing editor of almost 5 journals at one point. So it was a lot of work. And I started sort of mentoring, and actually Ian was my first mentor. So this is my second year in the STEM mentoring program, and as a mentee both times. I started because I was starting to lose focus of what I wanted to do in the publishing industry a little bit more. And the program really helped me kind of understand the industry a bit more from somebody who was outside of Springer Nature. And then sort of moved from that, stayed on for another couple of years in the same team. And until beginning of this year when I decided I wanted to move sort of into a leadership role. So I had already dabbled in leadership through DEI, funnily. So I chair a couple of DEI committees within Springer Nature. And then I applied again to be a mentee to understand how to make the transition into leadership. and it's been phenomenal this year. I have a fantastic mentor who's now helped me grow into a position where I can actually formally line manage people, which is what I've started doing now at Scientific Reports. So I started my role as a deputy editor with a group of editors that I managed 2 months ago, so very, very new to this. And I've had a lot from this program, so I do hope to give back as well.
Great, and hi everybody, I'm Ian Borthwick. I'm Head of Publishing for BCS, the Chartered Institute for IT. It's a long story for me, because I started in publishing in November 2003, having gone through kind of like a career shaping process for trying to find out what I would actually like to do, like somewhere I'd like to work, the kind of people, the kind of language to speak. I did like academia, but only up to a bachelor's degree, basically. There was too much potential choice, so why do that? But advancing knowledge is actually something which appealed to me, and so that's why I found a way into publishing. Started with IWA Publishing, worked there until about 2006, joined Woodhead Publishing, which finally got bought out by Elsevier in 2012, but I'd already moved to Institution of Engineering and Technology by then, and finally left there in 2016 to join BCS. In my time through that, actually, I had a really good opportunity at Woodhead, who were STM members, to join the STM board as the under 35 member. So I got to go around the globe a bit and be at very august meetings with lots of people and really, really learn actually what's happening in the industry from both a high level and very much in detail. So that was an excellent experience. So getting involved in the board and or committees has been a fantastic experience for learning about what goes on in the industry from my perspective. And it also helped to set up the original ECPC committee, and we developed a series of subcommittees with all of your input, basically, to create different focus points. I think that's probably the 2014 survey helped with that. And I joined the subcommittee which helped set up the mentoring program. There was a great bunch of people that helped to get it done. We took some inspiration from SYP, from ALPS, but also looked at what it was we wanted to achieve internally and make sure we could work that through with the support of the STM board, obviously. And since then, I've been helping to mentor on the program pretty much every year. I think I might have missed 1 year so far, but that's it. And I've learned a lot from working with mentees like Akila. Obviously, he's done really well, actually well done, in developing the leadership role. And it was one of those fantastic kind of approaches of finding a way of being a leader that I think that's a really good example of how to make it work and how mentoring can work. But I work in a learning and development organisation, so a lot of this kind of might come more easily, but some of my colleagues are much more in depth in learning and development, and apparently telling me that I've not been doing so much mentoring as career coaching. So I'm not really sure what I've been offering, but it may not be exactly the same as what other mentors may approach. But you get from me what you get from me, so I hope that's okay. And I encourage everybody to get involved as a mentee or a mentor. It's actually really good, useful experience, and I think it's really additive to what we do in the industry. And it also helps, as the marketing person said, to get word of mouth, spread it through all of these different people. They have a responsibility, great power, etc. Anyway, Rachel.
So as you've heard, we've got a mixture here of mentees and mentors, some long established who are delighted to come back every year, but also mentees who are coming back every year. So one thing I wanted to ask the panel just talk about is, what has been your experience as a mentor-mentee of the programme over the years? And don't mind who starts, so I can do left to right again.
Yeah, I can kick us off. Why not? So this was the first time that I've actually been a mentee. So it's been a fantastic experience. I've actually had my final call with my mentor last week, which was quite sad actually. So it was we had a really great time, and we really went on like a journey together, because I did have quite a big job change through that process. So it was really nice just to have someone external to the organisation to really talk me through their own career and their own perspectives and things. It did sort of fall into a little bit more of a coaching side of things, so fairly similar to what Ian was saying, but it was incredibly useful. And for me as well, I really like being a mentor as well, which is why I've signed up to do the mentor side of things for STM. And I really hope that the things that I've learnt being a mentee will help me be a better mentor in future. So I've been doing it for a few years, and I think it's quite nice to almost jump between the two occasionally, just because you get a completely different perspective from it.
Great, thank you. So for me, because of how I kind of came across it, I hadn't really given it much thought at all. So I kind of went into it with low to no expectations of what was going to happen. And actually, I think that's a real blessing, because I've been blown away, really, by what it's brought to me. Like, I've definitely developed skills that I wasn't expecting. The thought I'd given it was maybe it'll look on my CV. I think it does, but it's been so much more than that. And I think it's really helped me grow as a professional, as a leader. I've really developed my listening skills in a way that I wasn't expecting. And I can talk a lot, so it's been really good being in an environment where actually the onus has not been on me to talk, but it's been on me to listen and to provide support. And I think it's also given me a lot of confidence that I do have something of value, something to offer. And so, yeah, I've really been kind of blown away and kind of, it's been unexpected, the impact that it's had on me professionally, but I think personally to a certain extent as well.
I think it was similar. I started actually similar to what you did. I signed up because I really felt like I was there in the industry for about 2 years. I didn't know what next. I knew I was going to get a promotion in my role if I stayed another 6 months, but I kind of wanted to know and like intentionally grow, but I didn't know how to approach it. So I took up the STEM mentoring program. And actually, Ian was my first mentor, and I was super confused at a point about which direction I wanted to go. I kind of wanted to grow in the strategy side, but I also didn't want to leave science behind. And it kind of helped me explore the various options. And it was good to talk to an outsider, because if I did speak to somebody within the company, it would always go by the roles that were available in the company without really knowing how else you can really expand your skill set and how you can grow in your career. When I signed up for it for the second time, again, it was out of intention to change roles. And so for me, it's absolutely been amazing to hear people in leadership roles talking to me about how their career was and how I could approach various sort of jumps in my career. And also, I mean, the most recent call I had with my mentor, and I haven't had my last call. I don't know how that's going to go. I think I'm going to be very sad. But I kind of was like, oh my God, this is a new team. And I came out of being like almost 5 years in my old team where I was like considered expert into a team where I'm completely new and kind of starting to panic a little bit. Like, oh my God, I feel like almost I'm new to publishing again. And it's kind of helped me bring some balance into my thinking and my role, and also approach it sort of with, let's learn, and it's okay to stumble a little bit. So it's brought that kind of, it's fine, everybody's human, we all learn as we go forward, and it's expanded my way of thinking quite a lot. So I've learned from both the times I've been mentees, it's been phenomenal, and I do hope to give back.
So I guess mentoring's always been a way of giving back. I learned a lot working with STM, and being able to share that with wider personnel within the STM community has been one of the key goals. I've learned a lot working with different mentees. They all come from different companies, some of them very big companies, and it's kind of interesting to learn what the boundaries of what they actually know are. And it's sort of, I was just thinking, like, I once tutored on an STM journals course, and I showed up as some like commissioning editor or something like that, and I bet for books, and I bet these people are thinking, who the hell is this guy? A books commissioning editor. But then everybody in journals publishing at that time was in very specialized roles, editorial or accounts or something, so nobody actually looked at the full life cycle, whereas in a small books publisher you have to fend for yourself basically. So it was really an eye-opening experience like that, and it just showed there were a lot of people out there looking for that kind of information, looking at what other people do, and being able to share kind of perspectives on that, but not just perspectives on that, kind of what routes there are to work. You know, have you actually looked within your organisation for that thing that you're looking for? Because if you ask for it, you might get it, and I think it's helping to build people's confidence. And for me as well, it's been an excellent experience in sort of working with people outside the organisation to sort of build my own sort of managerial skills, basically, to help with a bit of leadership like that. Obviously, the great thing about STM mentees is they're all very focused on helping themselves, which I think is the right way of going about it. So that's been a great experience, and I'd love to see like Akila and others who've actually stepped forwards in their careers, through that, and have been happy to reach out to me as well to sort of say, have I ever heard of this company? What they like, and it's like, yeah, they're actually a good company to work for. Try that, So, but that was always outside of the mentoring program because I know that's one of the rules. So, but it's been fantastic. It's a great experience to be a mentor, and it does take a lot of time. By the way, it's actually really quite a relief when you have people who will take care of themselves and just need that little bit of a steer to work it through. I hope that's the right answer to your question, Rachel.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes people say, oh, mentoring, I don't have the time for it. It's one call a month for a year. And I think we underestimate, I've had a lot of mentors or approach people to say, would you like to be a mentor? Oh, I've only been in publishing for a couple of years. That couple of years to a brand new person is exactly what they need. We don't want to match a mentor of 40 years with a brand new mentee. We want to match a mentor of 40 years with a colleague with 40 years experience with a mid-career. So I think, if you think you don't have what it takes to be a mentor, I will absolutely say you do. And I would highly encourage, because we struggle each year to get mentors. I think maybe there's that kind of imposter syndrome, or we're not doing a good enough job at disseminating it. And that's what today is about. That's what a lot of our promotion is a bit about, is to try and get the word out. This is a free scheme. Don't pay for it. We'll take your mentees and your mentors, we'll match them with people from other organisations so we can have different cultures. Helps early people with their networks. Exactly what Ian is saying about, I've got mentees who have now gone on and they're now working in my company. They're doing so. The value of it, I cannot stress, is more than you can ever imagine. On to that very well-placed topic. What has been the most valuable or challenging? Because I've had lots of cases where mentors have struggled with their partnerships, not being able to help, or the mentee hasn't showed up, or whatever. So I think we also need to be honest about what's great about the scheme, but also what challenges you've had. Let's pretend let's not pretend there aren't any. So shall I start at the other end and come back this way?
I guess the most difficult challenge is really discerning what a mentee wants and needs, because that's kind of have to employ a bit of self-reflection in the mentee to get the right answer as to what they want, because then if you're clearer on what a mentee wants, it's a slightly easier path towards mentoring towards that, I suppose, unless that's coaching, Fran, I'm not really sure still. Sorry. Yeah, that's been the most challenging, and there's not always the right fit, and I think I did have one mentee relationship where it wasn't quite the right fit, so we just knocked it on the head, and that was fine. And that person went on and did, I think they probably either got another mentor or they just carried on. I know that they've continued to progress in the industry. That's one of the things. It's great to meet people like that and stay in contact with them. Other challenges. Well, I had a mentee on the other side of the world, so it was just a bit funny with the timings. But other than that, it still fitted into the day. So yeah, it's just trying to figure out what people want and hold them to account to help themselves. I guess that's the challenge, but it's a good challenge. So yeah, that's what I would say.
I mean, here maybe I think we should, I could bring something to the table in terms of challenge from my current mentorship scheme, because publishing industry is still quite a small industry, right? And we move quite a lot within. A lot of people are members of STEM, but others aren't. And for example, with my current mentor, that's been something that we decided at a personal level, because she moved into a publisher who was not a STEM member. And then the question is, how do we account for people moving around a little bit? And in this case, we decided we would keep the relationship at a personal level, but it is something that we struggled, so it did impact sort of our meetings for about 2 to 3 months while we still were trying to figure out how this works. So I think that is something I would say for us to be aware of. But also, I think when I started with Ian, for example, as a mentor, he had a lot of experience. So it helped me settle in as a mentee quite easily. But sometimes, and I know this of a colleague of mine at Springer Nature, who is new to the program, but also has a mentor who's new to the program. So, trying to balance sort of how to establish that relationship and what to get out of it. I think that was quite a big challenge for her, and I actually do not know what came of it. Maybe I should follow up, but I know that it was a challenge getting set up.
So Rachel's sort of stolen my point. When this kind of opportunity came up, I was coming up to 4 years in publishing, and I think I had a really clear kind of preconceived notion of like what a mentor looked like, and that didn't look like someone who was in their 20s and been in publishing for like 3 years. And I was really worried that if I put myself forward for this, I wouldn't have anything to say, that my advice would be rubbish, that I wouldn't know what I was doing. And I think, I spoke to some friends about it, and I said, how would you feel if you were matched with someone like me, and would you find that valuable? Would you find it interesting? They were very nice about it, but they were my friends, so I guess that's necessary. And so I sort of pushed myself out of my comfort zone by signing up, and it's worth noting at this point that STM do provide a small kind of training for mentors ahead of the scheme, and that was really useful. But I was still quite nervous going into those kind of early sessions about like what do I actually say to these people, and I had 2 mentors in the first year, both very, very different, and it definitely took kind of a moment to get into it, but I never felt without support, and I'm sure if I'd reached out for kind of more guidance, there would have been more as well. But I think that really, for me, was kind of just getting over my own preconceptions of kind of what mentorship looked like, and actually now I've done it, I think it's really helped me in terms of kind of like my confidence and stuff, that actually I do sometimes know what I'm talking about, and that have actually achieved something in the last 6 years. But yeah, I think that getting over that kind of initial emotional hurdle of like, can I exist within this space, was I think the biggest challenge for me.
So putting on a bit of a mentee hat for one of the challenges, and it was quite interesting that I was almost doing this to myself, but before I was going into the meetings with my mentor, I was thinking, oh goodness, the questions that I'm thinking about, the problems I want to solve, are they actually worth this person's time, or am I just coming to them with just loads of silly little questions that they probably think, oh, I could have been off doing some work, or going to a meeting, or doing something a bit more important. But it was really strange that I was putting myself into that position as a mentee, because as a mentor, no question's too small, and I would always be more than happy to encourage people to go, doesn't matter, just ask it, like, that's fine, that's what this is for. So it has almost been like a challenge with myself, if that makes sense, to get over this weird preconception that I put on myself. But it has made it really useful for being a mentor in future, that I can give that person more space, and I thought I did before, but maybe I can do more in future to make them feel comfortable, and no question is a silly question, even if they think it's a tiny thing, it could have quite a big impact going forwards.
Yeah, some of the feedback, we've done the survey already for the 2022 cohort, and the same bit of feedback comes back every year, and it's like a 2-pronged bit of feedback, and one is you don't give us enough training, so this is lovely to hear that we're doing a good enough job, but I think the struggle we have is if we're too prescriptive in how we want you to operate as a mentor, that limits your own kind of creativity in the partnership. So we do a kind of webinar in the kind of the March time. So we pair you together in January, give you a month to get set. Then we do kind of 2 webinars, one for mentors, one for mentees, where we invite previous mentors to come and say what worked for them. We also point to some resources, but we really make it clear that this is yours to do with what you wish. Ian's talking about coaching, that's how I do it, because there's some people on the scheme that I know are really, and we usually tend to match them purposely with mentees that are looking for very clear goal. We're going to talk about this session, we're going to have these goals, this achievement. That's not my skill set. I can flex if I need to, as most of us can, into offering that, but I've found with my mentees, they've wanted just someone to talk to. They're not looking for you to solve their problems, they're looking for I've got this huge presentation to society next month. What are your tips for, holding a room? What's your tips for this? Or, I did the SYP, the Into program, which was 6 months for people just out of uni trying to get into publishing. And this guy came and he was like, I don't know how to write my CV. Okay, great, I can help with that. So I think that's part of what we really want to say with this scheme is that we're never going to tell you how to do it. And I know that does frustrate some mentors, and I think that's also, if you're new to the scheme and you're new to mentoring, but we are here for that, and that's why we have the kind of networking sessions for other mentors. I would encourage you, if you are worried about that, reach out to me and I will make you feel amazing about yourself, because you all have what we are looking for, but don't let that put you off. We are here to support you, but we're not here to tell you how to do it. And I think that helps. But the same with mentees. And we haven't always got the partnerships right. And again, this is my call out for my call to action. We don't always get enough mentors. We get loads of mentees, but not enough mentors. And that then limits who we can pair with. And we're so grateful that so many of our mentors are willing to double up. They'll take 2 mentees. But we have some very disappointed mentees out there because we can't match them with the right person. So don't just promote within your organisations to editorial. Don't just promote to production. Go to your content people, go to your IT people, go to your rights and permissions, go to your sales. We have mentees in these areas looking for mentors. So please don't think that publishing professional just means the stereotypical. And that's the big shout out from us today is publishing professional is every single person that works in the publishing ecosystem. It's not just those standard ones. Enough for me. Right. I think I've got time for one more question. We good? So we're talking about early career and career growth. How do this particular scheme, but also other mentoring schemes, help early career people with their career progression? You want to start, Fran?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I guess for me, it probably summarises quite a lot of what we've been covering here, is that it gives people an opportunity really to talk to someone who is a little bit outside of their usual orbit really within their company. So it's an opportunity for someone really to go out and ask those questions that they might be a little bit afraid possibly to ask their direct manager, or maybe they might feel that they want a completely outside perspective. Maybe their peers within their department or within their company are going to come at it from a certain perspective anyway. And for me, just thinking about that as well, some of the best mentoring-menteeing conversations I've had are from people in completely different work setups to me. So I've worked with someone who works in marketing. I'm currently talking to someone who works in books, and I've never worked in books, but there's so much that we can talk about and so much that we can learn from each other. And in a mentor role as well, you don't necessarily have to have like all of the knowledge about this particular thing. There's always like these key themes that come up, and like how to deal with this, how to handle this difficult conversation, how to manage someone. And so there's just like all of these myriad of benefits really that can help.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's benefits on both sides. I think as a mentor, I've gained a lot in terms of kind of skills. I've met people, networked through that kind of initial training session, and obviously the mentees that I've worked with, obviously are a different organisation I've never worked for. Listening, confidence, being really concise in your communication is a really big part of it. Being clear about what you want to say and how you want to say it, when you need to nudge and when you need to be like, bit more kind of like direct, I guess. And I've not been a mentee in any scheme, which is another reason why it felt a bit controversial to be a mentor. But I know from the mentees that I've worked with, we've done a lot of career stuff together, whether that's pushing their ideas that step further, whether that's helping them work towards internal promotions, whatever that might be, asking for a pay rise. That's a scary thing. But all those kind of little things. And actually, it's such a privilege to kind of come to the end of the year and to kind of reflect. And I always reflect with my mentees where they were when we started, and actually to see that kind of career growth and development of the things that we've talked about, the things they put into action, is really, really rewarding. But also it means that they're, you know, in a different place than when they started in terms of their career. So, yeah, great on both sides.
I think I've been part of several mentorship programs, and I think there are different aspects of mentoring that can help in career growth from each of the different types. So one of that is, for us, we have an internal journals mentoring program within Springer Nature. We also have a DEI mentoring program, and the DEI mentoring program is mainly to bring people of underrepresented communities a little more, like, you know, to reassure them that some of the things that they think or ask is totally fine, things like that. And also the STEM mentoring program, and I think each of them add different values. And at the end of sort of every cycle of mentorship, I've always had some growth in my career. So for me personally, I definitely think mentoring works, or being mentored works for career growth. So it, you know, it also helps kind of find opportunity. I think we've spoken about this in the mentoring, in the mentee meeting, networking meeting, I think, about like also connecting you to, like, you know, I don't know when I start, for example, if I'm in the right part of publishing, I don't know what other opportunities are there. So it helps to kind of discuss this with your mentor to understand what other opportunities may be there. I've also known people who've been, like, I've networked with others through my mentor, and that has helped me grow in my career. In my current sort of STEM mentoring scheme, I had a lot of like interviews coming up towards various roles I was applying for, and sort of like just bouncing the ideas. Some of that needed, you know, present a vision statement. Like I've never done that in my life. So to kind of have somebody else tell me if I'm thinking in the right direction or not, and kind of hone my thinking a little bit, they're almost like a, you know, like a sounding board to know whether you're thinking in the right direction, and sort of to help you navigate a possibly difficult space. So I definitely think mentoring has a lot of value in helping clarify your own thoughts a little bit as well. So yeah, personally for me, career has always been driven by some mentoring. So I definitely think it has a big impact on career growth.
I think you know, publishing is an interesting industry, full stop. Not everybody wants to go into publishing, but a lot of people get an English degree. I want to be a publisher. I want to commission fiction. It's like, well, there's not many people that do that. But have you thought about STM publishing? Do you know about STM publishing? And a lot of people don't. I was quite lucky. A few kind of points I was just thinking about when I first decided to maybe get into publishing. My uncle introduced me to Literary Agent. I just had a quick chat with her. She was like, so what are you doing about getting into publishing? Where are you volunteering? Bookshops? Are you helping to edit people's CVs? And it's like, oh, that's a really good point. Maybe I should actually do something about it instead of just throwing CVs out. But then when it came to the CVs, and I got involved with SYP to an extent, I met somebody there, and he's helped me kind of to craft my CV a bit and make sure I wasn't mixing metaphors in my cover letter, which was obviously something which would fall down. And I did have another really good experience. Oh yes, and as I said, the career shaping. So somebody who worked in the company that my brother worked at, she just worked in HR, but she wanted to sort of extend herself in sort of career development, and so she just used me as a test case, basically, to kind of go through the process. So, I mean, I guess what it says is like STM publishing can be a hidden industry, but it's a really good one. It's got a lot of people in it, and they work hard to deliver really good results in advanced science, and that's across the board. You know, whether it's open access or otherwise, everybody's working to get it right for the audience, for the reader, for the researcher. That's fantastic. But taking that kind of the role, what's the role of mentoring and all of that, and it's to help bring you into that fold and have that an action orientation to try it out. It's not always guaranteed to work, but you're not going to find out unless you actually experiment with it, and to get that kind of sage advice, that bit of more experienced advice as to what has worked in the past, what other people know about, and what within their networks they can help to bring, or basically bring you into their networks as well, and that just creates a much wider network further down the line. So that's I see the role of mentoring, and I think it's been fantastic from people. It's fantastic to have it so that people can get involved and find out more. So that's definitely a great outcome, Rachel.
Before we go to the Q&A, I'm just going to steal one last bit of advice from each of you. What bit of leadership advice have you received in your careers that you think is the best bit? Ooh. And if anyone's got that on the tip of their tongue, they can start. Go on.
That listening is the most important part of leadership.
Yeah, I think that was one, and the other was empathy. Be empathetic.
Sure.
I guess mine was not thinking about that sort of linear career progression and thinking outside the box to get the skills you need.
One thing that kind of sticks with me is, and I probably tell a lot of my mentees, is it's not always, it's not linear. It's not always you'll go up in one organisation. Certainly, books publishing can't really do that. So there's lots of diagonal moves. So you go up a role, but you move to a different company to do that. And sometimes you might need to find a way around people work in marketing, go into editorial, for instance. Sometimes you get into marketing or sales, sometimes just to get indoors. But then also people do lots of wonderful things and lead companies off the back of that commercial experience. So that's great. So yeah, it's that looking outside of the box kind of approach to how you can develop. That's been the best one from sticks in my mind.
So last plug before the Q&A. Applications for the mentoring scheme for 2023 are open until the 16th of December. Any questions for my illustrious panel?
Thanks, everyone. That was a really insightful panel. I'm really interested in the concept of reverse mentoring. So my question for those of you who've been mentors before is, if you were to flip that on its head and be mentored now by someone who is more junior than you or only has a couple of years experience, what are the key things that you'd be trying to learn from them?
I can jump in on this one. So I'm a huge fan of reverse mentoring, and I think one of the areas in which it's particularly powerful is kind of like a DEI space. I'm queer, and I know that's really shaped my experience of working in academic publishing. And although we all have a responsibility to educate ourselves, I think that I would really value if someone was wanting to do that, to understand what it's like to be neurodivergent, or what it's like to be black, or what it's like to be disabled working in this industry, and to understand that perspective and to understand how I, as a leader, can create the change that they want to see rather than the change that I think that they want to see.
So my reverse mentoring comes from my 16-year-old daughter, basically. So I've just learned a lot like that. Kind of, I keep up with the lingo and everything. But I mean, the biggest thing I've learned from some of my mentees is kind of, you understand the scope of the challenges they face, and you can reflect on that in your own organisation. I think everybody's always looking for what's new and also where's the market, and I think that's really valuable experience. If you had a set idea of what you thought you were doing, and actually the market's changed, new generation wants something else, and it's just like, well, how do we reflect on that? How do we bring that in? So that's a really valuable part of reverse mentoring from my perspective.
Yeah, not from my mentees, but both my direct report in my previous job and in my current job, both of them have been in the industry twice as long as I have, and they're both older than me. So I've had the wonderful opportunity to be managing people who basically are better at their job than I am. And I think that's been one of the most humbling and beneficial experiences for me. And it's also allowed me to be the manager that I want to be. So I think I would struggle now if I was given a direct report who had no idea what they were doing. I'd have to move into that kind of directive leadership style, which is probably not with my preference. So I think I've been very lucky personally that I've been able to repeatedly have people working with me who can show me exactly how things need to be, and that's helped me be a better manager, I believe. So I'm a huge advocate for that. Okay, thank you. And a huge thank you for those